Even though I wasn't diagnosed with severe mania and psychosis until many years after my high school experience, I did demonstrate a wide variety of what I believe to be signs, early warning signs of what was to come. More particularly, I think that the experiences I'm about to share were indicators of hypomania, which is a more mild term, mild form of mania, but it's still a state of mind where you have elevated mood, increased levels of energy. But unlike mania, in hypomania, it doesn't come with delusions and hallucinations, but there's a lot of similarity. And the episodes are generally more short lasting than a full blown manic episode. My full blown manic episode in college was 6 months long. And during that episode, I experienced many delusions and hallucinations. I had to be hospitalized twice as a result. I was arrested at one point. I got kicked out of my university. I had all these disruptions to my life, and I wasn't functioning normally by any stretch of the imagination. So, what did my high school experience look like? Well, my high school experience was in many ways a roller coaster when it comes to my mood. And that's because it was in no way a normal high school experience. It was all over the place. I had missed the entire second half of my first ninth grade year. After the loss of my grandmother, I fell into a prolonged depressive period that resulted in me missing the entire first half of my second ninth grade year as well. And this would develop into a pattern. I would have chronic absences throughout my high school experience, with one exception being my sophomore year of high school. My sophomore year of high school, I actually had a perfect attendance. I did not miss a single day of school. I got elected class president. I advanced far in a poetry competition via Poetry Out Loud. I had straight A's, impeccable grades, impeccable attendance, and it was just a phenomenal school year. But then, of course, I ended up having a dropout period right after that tremendously successful school year. And I was a dropout mainly because I was having questions about my intelligence. I had obsessive thoughts about my intelligence and whether or not I was capable and competent enough to continue on in my coursework and become someone meaningful in this world. That's one thing with myself is I have always had this obsession with difference. I do not want in any way to be different from others. And that's not to bash uniqueness, but I mean different in the sense of, less capable. Or, if there's people out there who can handle overwhelming amounts of tasks, then I want to be able to do the same. There's truly no limit whatsoever when it comes to what Tyler Adolfo is capable of. And if at any point I experience those negative thoughts that I am feeling less, I am feeling different, that's where I start to experience thoughts of suicidal ideation and some of the more extreme thinking patterns that I've had at various points in my life. So I had a dropout period. I ultimately ended up returning to high school for my junior and senior years. But instead of having an impeccable attendance, I was chronically absent again. My junior year, I want to say I missed about 80 something days of school. Still got straight A's. Still won mock trial divisional championship. And senior year, I had in the realm of like 90 to 100 absences. So I was absent from school a lot. Chronic absence was a huge theme of my high school experience. And it wasn't consistent in the sense, like the ninth grade year where I missed the entire second half of the first ninth grade year and then the entire first half of the second ninth grade year. Later on, it evolved in the sense that, I would have a 17-day span where I would make all 17 days of school in a row, followed by 26 absences in a row, followed by 3 days of school in a row, followed by 12 days of absences in a row. It was very inconsistent, and I think what this shows, what it highlights, is shifts in mood where I was feeling capable and competent one moment and then incapable and incompetent just days later. When I was feeling capable and competent, I would enumerate these lists in little books like this. And I would make lists of anywhere from 20 to 30 things, and I would call it my issues outstanding list. And it would be, read 2 chapters ahead of the rest of the class in a push, or, practice mock trial opening statement, recite 6 times. And I would just have like lists and lists and lists of all these various tasks, most of which were school related, some of which might be like, go to the gym for 3 hours. But a lot of these things were incredibly tedious and insurmountably time consuming. And these lists would not have been possible for me to complete if it weren't for the increased energy, the bolstered confidence that I felt during these various stages. And sometimes, I would get halfway through a list and then start having questions about my intelligence again, start experiencing self-doubt about my capabilities and start to feel incompetent again. I would experience overload. And there were a couple examples I could point to right off the top of my head. One is that in like a week time period, I had a long period of time where I didn't feel confident enough to apply to college. And then in a 1 week time period, I applied to like 20 different colleges. And for those who haven't experienced the college application process, it's very time consuming, it's very stressful. It requires a lot of mental willpower, due diligence, and commitment in order to do. So I would have these moments of extreme productivity where I would get a whole lot done. And then they would be followed by these periods of time, which were nowhere near as long as a full-blown manic episode, but where I had diminished sense of confidence, where I didn't feel as capable, and I got virtually nothing accomplished whatsoever. My senior year of high school, another example, I started the school year off taking 5 advanced placement classes, and I believe I made it through the first 24 days of the school year with no absences. I was attending all my classes. I had straight A pluses, and it was just 24 days into the year, but everything was going really good. And I remember an announcement coming over the radio announcing the people who've been welcomed to National Honor Society, and my name was not on the list, despite having straight A pluses for now what would be my 3rd school year in a row, because I did my sophomore year, my junior year, and now 24 days into my senior year. And I just felt like it wasn't equitable. I don't feel like I was at fault for those 2 first ninth grade years where I was given 6 Fs on my transcript, because I do believe that depression is a medical issue, and I didn't feel like I was in the right mental state to be held accountable for the classes I was missing during that time period. I was undiagnosed for much of that time. I wasn't receiving treatment for most of that time, and we would ultimately later learn that it was in fact a medical diagnosis of depression that kept me from being in school. And I felt like I was being punished for something that was beyond my control. I didn't see it as my fault that I was dealing with the debilitating effects of depression. And so I remember sending a lengthy, garrulous email to the then principal, Dr. Cushing, talking about the mistake I never made. And I think I left school that day too, because I was just in such an intensive euphoric mood of feeling like I'm still being punished for this. That no amount of hard work, no amount of effort, no amount of achievement will undo that punishment, will erase what wasn't my fault. That will always be lingering there. And I had this very catastrophizing mindset of all or nothing, of if things don't go exactly as I intend them to, then it means that chaos will follow and everything in my world will come crumbling down around me. And this pessimistic worldview was largely fueled by my past experience, my past traumas, my lived experiences in history. And so I was very distraught about that announcement. And this is just, in my view, another example of me experiencing elevated mood. And it sparked a depressive episode, which resulted in me missing school. And then later on, I would then experience increased energy with an elevated mood, but in the more hypomanic sense, because I would return to making my lengthy lists and being as productive as possible. And in addition to taking all my advanced placement courses, I was now taking 4 instead of 5 because the guidance department thought that I was just overwhelmed. I really wasn't with the actual coursework. It was more with the negative self-talk in my mind and false perceptions I had about how others perceived me. I ended up signing up for the DECA program, Distributive Educational Clubs of America, which provides high school students with the opportunity to demonstrate skills in various business fields. My category was business finance, and I poured assiduous amounts of hours into preparing for the tournaments that came as a result of signing up for this. And I ended up getting first place in my district, District 7. I ended up getting first place at the state conference and broke a 60-year record. It was in the newspaper. And on top of that, I was participating in the Lions Club Youth Speech Competition with the prompt, Integrity, What Does It Look Like? And I actually have that speech on my channel if you want to check it out. I believe it's the second video I've posted to my channel, my performance at the state finals. I ended up getting second place out of a competition that started with 900 student speakers. I got first place at the club level, first place at the zone level, first place at the district level, first place at the regional level, and then second place at the state finals. And so I had these moments of productivity, and I had these moments where I was rendered incapable of doing really anything. And to me, what this shows is hypomania, early signs of what was to come. Because this is very similar, very analogous to what I would experience during my junior year of college, when I started off the year extremely productive, working full time, taking on multiple positions in my social fraternity, and doing well academically. And then all of a sudden I start to lose sleep. The energy becomes a little bit too high. I get in the New York Times and I started to feel grandiose thoughts. And everything just spirals out of control. And before you know it, it's at a point where I can't manage or accomplish anything, where I completely lose my insight and discernment. And so in many ways, I view these high school memories as little mini manic episodes, the hypomania. Mini manic episodes that would later evolve into me having a full-blown manic episode. And what really astonishes me about the time that I was experiencing these hypomanic episodes is that in high school, for large chunks of time, I was on an antidepressant called Zoloft. And it is widely believed in medical circles. I'm not a medical person myself, but this is what I've read, that antidepressants can actually trigger mania in people with bipolar disorder. And so psychiatrists are often very careful in prescribing antidepressants because of that reason to people who have bipolar. But at the time, my diagnosis was depression, so it made sense to have an antidepressant. It wasn't until my junior year of college that I was given the diagnosis of severe mania with psychosis, bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. So I don't cast or attribute any blame to my past, uh, medical guides. I know that they did their best, and going forward, I know things are well within my power to make the rational decisions about my health and make the best decisions that I can in order to empower myself and maximize the productivity that I get out of myself. For me, that involves taking all 4 of my medications, the mood stabilizers, the antipsychotics, the antidepressants that I'm on, because I know that these things in conjunction will allow me to minimize the number of hypomanic episodes I have going forward, as well as reduce the chances of having a full-blown manic episode ever again. Not eliminate, but reduce the chances of. There's still that possibility, but it's a reduced possibility because of my medications. So thank you all for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this video. I just wanted to talk about my hypomanic experiences in order to help others understand what it kind of looks like and to learn more about bipolar disorder and the various associations and symptoms that come with it. I hope you found this video insightful. If you did, hit that like button, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button, and check out my playlist, Bipolar Breakdown, for other videos on the topic of bipolar disorder. Thank you all.